Good morning. This is Vicki Gervicus at the Greater Gainesville Chamber, and I'm delighted to welcome Kay Abbitt this morning. She is one of our candidates for school board, and it's District 5. And she's going to tell us a little bit about herself today and what things are important to her and why she's running for office. Welcome, Kay.
Thank you. Thank you. I am Kay Abbitt, and I'm running for school board because I feel like our students in our district deserve more than they've been getting for the past 10 years, it feels like. I have had 4 children who have gone through public schools, kindergarten through 12th grade. I was an Alachua County teacher for 10 years. I taught at Idlewild and at Archer. When I was teaching, I had to supplement my income. So I think that's an issue, that teachers aren't paid enough, but I tutored athletes at UF and I was an adjunct at Santa Fe in order to boost up my salary so I could take care of my family. I also started a company that provided federally funded free tutoring to over 700 students in Northern Florida and in North Carolina. And more recently, about 9 years ago, I started a high-performing charter in Northeast Gainesville. And I started that school because at the time, students were doing poorly in Northeast Gainesville, the schools were. And so I started the school with the idea that if schools had a longer day, kids could get double doses of reading. And if they went year round, that the longer summer, the shorter summer would help with the retention loss. Because I found when I taught in traditional schools that when kids would come back after 2.5 months off, they would, we'd have to spend like a month reviewing the prior year's standards, and then we could start. But we found at this school that when they only have a 6-week summer, we can come back and get right back into the next year's curriculum. And it worked, and it's been very successful. And that format definitely made a difference in increasing the learning gains for students in Northeast Gainesville. I retired from that a few weeks ago, and I'm running for school board because I feel like I have a lot of education experience, and I feel like I can bring a lot to the table.
Okay. All right. Well, let's jump into the questions and we'll get a little more detail on that. So the first question is, and you kind of touched on this a little bit already, but what do you perceive are the 3 most important concerns facing Gainesville right now?
And when you say Gainesville, I'm assuming you mean schools.
Yeah, the district. Yeah.
I think that our schools that are failing and have been failing for a while, understand that this was 9 years ago when I opened that school, and in 2022, the scores are still the same. Those schools are still D's or F's. And so that, and again, there may have been a C in between that, within that 10-year period, but most of the scores were D's or F's. And so there are students who could have gone through their whole elementary or middle school education in a school that was low performing, and that's not setting them up to be successful in high school or on down the road with whatever education that they're trying to get. They probably won't even get to that point because of the struggles within the schools and the lack of learning that's taking place. So I think we have to get our schools high performing, especially the ones that are struggling. I think behavior is a huge issue. And I think that contributes, along with attendance tardiness issues, that contributes to, in all schools, the reason why there are kids that are struggling. It also plays a factor in why we're losing our teachers. And so, it's difficult to be in a classroom and address behavior when you're supposed to be teaching. And not only are the kids who are misbehaving not learning, but every other kid in the room is missing out on valuable instruction. So I think behavior, the schools that are struggling. I also think we've got to do something to retain teachers, because there's such a shortage in our district schools for teachers that they're actually putting a long-term sub for a whole year in classrooms. And these subs have a bachelor's degree, but they have no education experience. And so it's very difficult to be in that situation as a teacher. And it's not very it's not a good way for a child to get an education.
Mhm.
So those are issues I think are important.
Okay. Next question is, what do you think the role of the school board is in our community?
Oh, I think our school board, they set the policy. They work with the superintendent and they set the policy and the direction that we want the school to go. And so if, right now our school board's pretty dysfunctional. If you've been watching school board meetings for the past few years, you know that there are political agendas and it's very divisive. And so the issues that are important, like how are we going to help our schools to be successful? They're just Band-Aids being put on those things. And so it's just that you've got to have a board that can work together. But I think that when this new board comes in, they need to spend some time together planning the direction they want the district to go. And of course, there's going to be a new superintendent that will be hired. And they need to make sure that the person they're hiring is someone who can take the district in the direction that the board has determined it needs to go. And it's also policy making. There are a lot of policies that the board makes, but in order to be able to have insight into what you're voting on or the policy that you're making, you have to be somebody who's in the schools. And so, board members, and I'm not saying you have to be in a school 5 days a week, but you have to, if you're so out of touch that you're never in a school, you're never talking to teachers, you're never talking to parents, you're never talking to administrators, it's going to be difficult to make decisions on curriculum and stuff like that if you're not involved in it.
Mhm. Okay, very good. And this is kind of a good segue into the next question, especially with question 1, which is, what would be your top projects and priorities if you're elected?
I think one top thing would be just what I said, setting a direction for how we want the schools to go, because I feel like there are hot topics coming up. There's rezoning. We've got to do something about the behavior in the schools, and all of these things we can go and address them all individually. But if we don't really know what we want our district to look like 4 or 5 years from now, we're just we're just sticking Band-Aids on these problems, and we don't have this comprehensive plan. So I think having this comprehensive plan of like, in 2030, this is our goal. And these are the steps that we're going to take to ensure that we meet that goal. And that would be like addressing behavior, because that is huge. There are teachers and parents who I've spoken to who are just very concerned about the behavior and there are no consequences. And, if there are not consequences for behavior, then, it's going to continue. And I'm concerned about all this misbehavior. We can't send kids home. We have to have a plan in school. And, I think it would be a great idea to have an in-school detention area where those kids go with a certified teacher, where they're still getting some instruction and help with their lessons, but also with a mental health counselor who can do some counseling for why this behavior is occurring. And there could be underlying issues. It could be their home life. It could be, they have a learning disability. It could be that they can't read and they're embarrassed in the classroom when they're asked to read, so they misbehave. But we need to provide support for those students who continually misbehave to try to get them on the right track.
Very good. Okay, and you definitely touched a little bit about this, so this is an opportunity to expand on it. There has been significant turmoil in the district and within the school board itself. How do you think this is best addressed?
It's going to be hard to address it because I am an educator. I'm not a politician, and this I feel like it's not pleasant. I'm kind of a middle of the road person. I don't lean toward either side. I'm not super liberal. I'm not super conservative. I just want what's best for the kids. And you have to go into it with that mindset, because, they're on both sides. There's so many agendas that some of those things have to do with school, but a lot of them are the party agendas that they're trying, that is the biggest issue for them, and not how can we get these kids to read and write at grade level or above. And so I think that, we've got to get away from this divisiveness on the board. And that's why this election is so critical, because if we don't get a board that can work together, it's not much is going to change in the coming years.
Very good. Okay. And then the last question is, why should members of the business community vote for you?
I think members of the business community should vote for me because I have experience. And I have experience not only as an educator, and I have a boatload of that. I have more experience as an educator than any candidate that's running. I also have business experience. You know, I started that company that I had expanded into North Carolina. At one point, I had over 300 employees that I was doing payroll for. I had a very successful business, so I have some sort of business sense. I also started a charter school from scratch. I was a teacher. That was my only experience. And I was able to go in there. I had to work with every department in the district. And I have a very successful school who's very financially stable. And so in the process of doing that, the importance of bringing the community into that was huge. You know, we had fraternities at UF, we had business partners in the district. And so I feel like I'm a person who has a lot of education experience, a pretty good business experience, but more than anything, I'm open to always listening. And I think that's a very important, you know, that's something that's very important for the school board.
Mhm. Very good. Okay, well, those were the 5 scripted questions. Now you have a few minutes just to touch on anything else that you wanted to make sure people know about you and kind of wrap it up and
Okay.
close it out.
I guess what it's important to know about me is what I said before, that I'm not a politician. And so I'm an educator, and my whole purpose for doing this is to improve the education for our students in the district. And I think that in order to do that, we're going to have to kind of be a little innovative in the way we look at things and approach things. And I think that the district's kind of been in a pattern where they're not looking outside of the box, so to speak. And so, you know, I think we need to look at the schools that are struggling. And I think we need to consider maybe adding some more time in the day so that they can get that extra instruction. I think we need to look at the way that we handle magnet schools. I mean, we have transportation issues already. And, you know, when we're doing additional transport of students from across town to magnets, and the magnets were put in the schools just because the school was struggling, and the magnet population brought the school grade up. It did nothing for the students in the school that were still struggling. And so we just have to, we need a board member, number one, that can work with people and be open to suggestions. And I feel like I'm that person. And we need someone with education experience, and we need someone who is willing to work really hard to solve the problems, and someone who is willing to look at things in a different perspective.
Very good. All right. Well, it was a pleasure to talk to you today, Kay. And what we want to emphasize here at the Gainesville Chamber is that the importance of your vote, your getting out, make your voice heard. Our primary is Tuesday, August 23rd. And please take the time to get to know all of these great candidates. Visit our website, GainesvilleChamber.com, and we'll have lots more information for you to do so. Thanks again so much, Kay. Good luck on the campaign trail for the next period until we're at the election.
All right. Thank you so much.